Making the headlines tonight, the U.S. Embassy spokesperson to Cambodia told EAC News that the United States welcomed Prime Minister Hun Sen and other ASEAN heads of state to Washington, D.C. for a successful U.S.-ASEAN Special Summit. Prime Minister Hun Sen stated that relations between Cambodia and the United States have reached a historical peak in both diplomatic and trade relations. And Mexican president said that the U.S. economic embargo on Cuba was a genocidal policy, raising the stakes in a standoff with Washington over its treatment of the communist ruled Caribbean island. This is the Daily Roundup on EAC News Channel. A very good evening to you. My name is Dekanin. The U.S. Embassy spokesperson to Cambodia, Chad Rodemert, told EAC News that the United States welcomed Prime Minister Hun Sen and other ASEAN heads of state to Washington, D.C. for a successful ASEAN-US Special Summit. He said the meeting demonstrated the United States' long-term commitment to ASEAN centrality in providing sustainable solutions to key regional challenges. EAC News reporter Dashana Gojin has the story.
Spokesperson Chad Rodemeyer told EAC News the United States and ASEAN have committed to establish an ASEAN-US comprehensive strategic partnership that is meaningful, substantive, and mutually beneficial at the 10th ASEAN-US Summit in November 2022. The response from the U.S. Embassy spokesperson in Cambodia was made on the evening of Tuesday, 17th May 2022, seeming to indicate the close relationship between Cambodia and the United States after the ASEAN-US Special Summit. Prior to the summit, Prime Minister Hun Sen was greeted by a large crowd of Cambodians living in the United States and Canada in front of the Willard Intercontinental Hotel, his residence in Washington, D.C. The ASEAN-US Special Summit was held on 12th to 13th May, chaired by U.S. President Joe Biden and co-chaired by Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen. After the summit, ASEAN and the U.S. reached a 28-point joint vision statement, according to the U.S. State Department. The 28-point joint vision statement emphasizes the importance of adhering to the key principles, shared values, and norms set out in the Charter of the United Nations, the ASEAN Charter, the Declaration on Zone of Peace, Freedom, and Neutrality, the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia, the 1982 United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the Treaty on the Southeast Asian Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone, and the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific. ASEAN and the United States reaffirmed the joint commitment to strengthen and build more comprehensive ASEAN-US dialogue partnership that has been long indispensable to ASEAN and the United States, as well as the broader region and the international community, in order to promote and maintain peace, security, stability, and prosperity in the region, to ensure that relations remain adaptable to meet new challenges, and to cooperate appropriately in international and regional forums where ASEAN and the United States are members. The reaffirmation of the joint commitment includes maintaining and promoting peace, security, and stability in the region, as well as the peaceful resolution of disputes, including full respect for the legal and diplomatic process without resorting to threats or intimidation or use of force, in accordance with international law. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
Cambodia-US relations began in 1950 at a time when the world was going through the Cold War crisis. This relationship has been seen as both bad and good from the beginning, but more recently, Cambodia and China have been getting closer, and the tensions between Cambodia and the U.S. have become more apparent. However, during a meeting in Washington, D.C. on the 11th of May with more than 2,000 Cambodians living in the United States and Canada, Prime Minister Hun Sen stated that relations between Cambodia and the United States have reached a historical peak in both diplomatic and trade relations. EAC News reporter Dashana Gojin has more.
Prime Minister Hun Sen believes that some of the issues and misunderstandings that Cambodia and the United States have with each other will be able to be resolved through mediation. He has previously affirmed that Cambodia wants to be friends with all countries in the world, including the United States. So the question then is, will Cambodia-US relations be able to improve? According to the president of the Institute of International Relations of the Royal Academy of Cambodia, Dr. Kin Phia, through examining the ASEAN-US Summit, he believes the relationship between Cambodia and the United States was strengthened, but that pushing the relationship between the two countries to a higher level will require the goodwill of both countries. In his perspective, Cambodia has always generally shown a strong desire to build relations with the United States and other countries in the world.
នឹងគោលបំណងក៏ដូចជាភាពស្មោះត្រង់របស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកនៅក្នុងទំនាក់ទំនងរបស់ខ្លួនជាមួយនឹងប្រទេសកម្ពុជាផងដែរបាទ
Cambodia has spent more than $720,000 on hiring American consulting firm Akin Gump Strauss Hauer and Feld LLP to lobby the United States to better understand Cambodia, especially regarding ongoing misunderstandings such as the issue of the Ream naval base. During a meeting with Akin Gump Representative Scott David Parvin in the United States on the morning of 12th May, Prime Minister Hun Sen urged the representative to lobby more about Cambodia to the United States. That same day, the Prime Minister also met with Michael Putrazello, a representative from the U.S. public relations firm Corvus Communications, to urge them to spread more truths about Cambodia to the world and to present a look at the kingdom that is not only from the side of the opposition media. Dr. Ir Sopal, an associate professor at Arizona State University and an expert in political science and international affairs, told EAC News via email that simply hiring a consulting firm could not improve Cambodia-US relations. He wrote, "Lobbying is a Washington, D.C. pastime. Everyone does it that has money to squander, from Saudi Arabia to Cambodia. Why the Prime Minister would waste his time to go talk to his own lobbyist must be because he has so much time to waste." However, in Dr. Kin Pia's perspective, hiring a lobbying company to help Cambodia-US relations is still a positive step, as it at least shows Cambodia's efforts to improve its relationship with the United States.
ជាការមើលឃើញរបស់ខ្ញុំតិចឬច្រើនក្រុមហ៊ុននេះវាអាចថាយ៉ាងហោចណាស់ក៏បាននាំនៅរូបភាពពិតខ្លះអំពីប្រទេសកម្ពុជាទៅដល់អ្នកធ្វើគោលនយោបាយរបស់សហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកក៏ដូចជាសាធារណជនសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកដែរហើយសួរថាតើក្រុមហ៊ុននេះជួយបានកម្រិតណាអាចនឹងនាំឲ្យកម្ពុជាយើងមានទំនាក់ទំនងល្អជាមួយសហរដ្ឋអាមេរិកកម្រិតណាខ្ញុំគិតថាយើងពិបាកប៉ាន់ស្មានណាពីព្រោះតាមរយៈនៃអរិយការទូតអាមេរិកកន្លងមកនេះគឺมันមានការផ្លាស់ប្ដូរអីច្រើនចំពោះប្រទេសកម្ពុជាដោយសារតែនៃតពលដែលក្រុមហ៊ុននឹងបានជួយទេ
In a meeting with Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn on the sideline of the ASEAN-US Summit on 13th May, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken also raised the issue of human rights and fundamental freedoms in Cambodia. He urged Cambodia to drop political charges and to allow opposition politicians to participate freely in the upcoming elections. He also reiterated U.S. concerns about how the construction of military facilities by the People's Republic of China at the Ream naval base could have a negative impact on regional security. In response, Cambodian Foreign Minister Prak Sokhonn stated that Cambodia is fully committed to a process of inclusion and freedom of speech. He mentioned that elections in Cambodia are free, fair, and protect the rights and well-being of the people. As for the allegations against the Ream naval base, the Deputy Prime Minister said that Cambodia adheres to the constitution, which does not allow any foreign base or presence in Cambodia. He said, "The renovation of the base serves solely to strengthen the Cambodian naval capacities, to protect its maritime integrity and combat crimes." For Dr. Ir Sopal, in order to build good relations with the United States, Cambodia does not need a lobbyist and rather needs to work on the real issues that the U.S. government has raised, such as Cambodia's ever-growing relationship with China and the state of democracy and human rights in the country. On the other hand, Dr. Kin Pia thinks that Cambodia has made every effort to respond to the United States, but what is important is the United States' willingness to increase good relations with Cambodia. Prime Minister Hun Sen explained why he believed the Cambodia-US relationship had reached its peak by underlying how the U.S. Embassy is firmly established in the kingdom and by highlighting the growing economic and trade ties between the two countries.
ទំនាក់ទំនងរវាងកម្ពុជានិងអាមេរិកបានដើរដល់ចំណុចកំពូលដែលមិនធ្លាប់មានក្នុងប្រវត្តិសាស្ត្រពុតមែនតែវាមានលេចដែតក៏បណ្ដែលសូមឲ្យសង្កេតលើបញ្ហាពីរមុនគេទី1មុនឆ្នាំ2000តើអាមេរិកមានស្ថានទូតផ្ទាល់ខ្លួននៅកម្ពុជាឬអត់ចម្លើយគឺអត់មានទេអាមេរិកជួលផ្ទះគេទៅនៅទេក្រោយឆ្នាំ2000ជាពិសេសក្រោយដំណាក់កាលដែលកម្ពុជារកឃើញសន្តិភាពពេញលេញ អាមេរិកបានកសាងស្ថានទូតនៅកម្ពុជាទីតាំងស្ថានទូតនៅកម្ពុជាគឺជាទីតាំងល្អបំផុតប្រសិនបើមិនមែនជាអាមេរិកទេខ្ញុំអត់ផ្ដល់ឲ្យទេកន្លែងហ្នឹងព្រោះជាក្លឹបរបស់យុវជនឈិតវត្តភ្នំ100ទី2ក្នុងប្រវត្តិទំនាក់ទំនងពាណិជ្ជកម្មពេលនេះគឺជាពាណិជ្ជកម្មដែលធំបំផុតជាងទំហំពាណិជ្ជកម្មដែលនាំចូលមកអាមេរិកជាង 9,000 លានឥឡូវក្រុមហ៊ុនអាមេរិកកាន់តែច្រើនទៅស្រុកខ្មែរ
Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and the Commander of the Royal Cambodian Army, Lieutenant General Hun Manet, met with the Ambassador of the Republic of France in Cambodia, Jacques Palais, at the headquarters of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces on Tuesday afternoon. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has more details.
During the meeting, Lieutenant General Hun Manet mentioned the long-standing friendship between the two countries, who have so far enjoyed good cooperation in all fields. On behalf of the Cambodian people, Lieutenant General Hun Manet thanked the French Republic for its past assistance to Cambodia on many important tasks, such as the national unification of Cambodia through France's role in co-chair of Paris's conference, the development of peacekeeping forces to Cambodia, the provision of development assistance and scholarships for Cambodian students, aiding legal development, including providing funding for Khmer Rouge Tribunal, supporting the incorporation of Prevahir Temple as the World Heritage Site, providing funding for the COVID-19 research project, as well as supporting Cambodia's role in the 2022 ASEAN Chair and the Prime Minister's efforts to find peaceful solution ongoing conflict in Myanmar. As for military cooperation, Lieutenant General Manet also noticed that strong bilateral cooperation manifests through various agreements at both of the level of the government and the level of the Ministry of National Defence. Through these bases, many cooperation activities were implemented, including disaster and docking exercises, military assistance and human resources training in military skills, peacekeeping operations, and the French language, especially support for activity military academies and the National Centre for Peacekeeping Forces Management and clearance of mines and explosive remnants of war. In response, Ambassador Jacques Palais expressed his pride in historical relationship between Cambodia and France, especially in 2022, which marks the 70th anniversary in diplomatic relations between the two countries and the 30th anniversary of the French peacekeeping operations in Cambodia. The ambassador noted that Cambodia is a country that has been bitter history of victim of chronic war, but now Cambodia has a highly capable army that is experienced in peacekeeping, has proficiency in the French language, and has been on the duty in many countries in the world. The ambassador said that there was the most proud it has been 19% of the Cambodian Blue Helmet troops are women, exceeding the expectations of the United Nations. Women forces are very important and high in demand, as most of the victims in warring states are women, making it imperative that the women be able to work closely with other women. The French ambassador also congratulated Cambodia for being one of the leading countries in the world for combating the control and the spread of COVID-19, and further congratulated Lieutenant General Hun Manet on his recent reward from the Royal Government of Cambodia for his past contributions in the fight against COVID-19. Going forward, the two sides expressed their willingness and interest in stepping up efforts to boost military cooperation between the two countries, especially in considering building direct relations between the two countries' armies, which can be an important part of strengthening relations between the two countries. The two sides also exchanged views on the global and regional issues, noting the importance and necessary in peace, stability and development for all. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
On Tuesday, 17th of May, Lieutenant General Hun Manet, the Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces, met with Anatoly Borovic, the Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Cambodia, at the headquarters of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces. EAC News reporter Darshana Gochan has the story.
During the meeting, the Russian ambassador praised the royal government of Cambodia for successfully controlling the spread of COVID-19, which has allowed Cambodia to reopen the country and begin its socio-economic recovery process in all sectors. He highlighted the past good relations between the Cambodian and Russian armies, and also expressed his willingness to continue strengthening the army cooperation. In response, Lieutenant General Hun Manet expressed his appreciation for the long-standing friendly relations between the two countries, as well as his appreciation for the cooperation between the Cambodian and Russian armies, especially the many joint activities that have been conducted, such as the exchange of visits and training of human resources. Darshana Gochan, EAC News.
The Deputy Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Armed Forces and Commander-in-Chief of the Royal Cambodian Army, Lieutenant General Hun Manet, has stated that religion has played an important role in social moral education, as learning, devotion, and obedience in pagodas has led to many positive results among the Cambodian people. EAC News reporter Anthony Ellis has further details.
Lieutenant General Hun Manet's statement of religious education was made during the groundsbreaking ceremony for the new Wat Kiri Usu Tukchul Pagoda in Tukchul District, Kampot Province on Wednesday, 18th of May. He said that the promotion of sowing the positive thoughts through Buddhist education is traditional that elders have shared to the next generation. He added that Buddhist education is also integrated within the imperial education system, aiming to bestow the Cambodian children with morals, virtue and bright intellectual capabilities that will help contribute to building harmony in social and national development. He said religion teaches people to keep the Dharma with themselves, especially the leaders of countries who are responsible for the fate of the people, even more so to practice the Dharma consistently, because diversion from this path will lead to fever and destruction of the nation, as what happened under the Pol Pot regime. He stressed that this is a sense. It is not important how big or small the country is. The main thing is the leadership that led the Dharma, honestly and the sacrifice to serve, protect and save the people in cases without running away, even in situations of crisis. He added that this is what the CPP has done in leading the country for more than 40 years, by saving lives from war and crisis, improving the lives, health and the people together to fulfill merits and providing education and job opportunities and to continue this cause onward. Anthony Ellis, EAC News.
Cambodia has reported no new COVID-19 cases for the 11th day straight. There has been one new patient recovery and no new deaths. The total number of Omicron cases in the kingdom stands at 15,821, with 1,362 imported and 14,459 local community cases. Cambodia's COVID-19 case tally has stalled at 136,262. The death toll stands at 3,056. The number of patients treated successfully since the pandemic reached Cambodia is 133,198, and the tally for imported cases remains at 21,219.
If it's happening and you need to know about it, you'll get it all right here. EAC News brings you updates and breaking news in English across all of our platforms and channels. The EAC News app, YouTube, Facebook, Telegram, Twitter, and our website www.eacnews.asia. Join me and the rest of the EAC News team every day on your favourite channels. EAC News, Cambodia made clear.
The US-led North Atlantic Treaty Organization has fueled the current Russia-Ukraine crisis through its continued efforts to supply weapons to Ukraine instead of focusing on ways to mediate and resolve the conflict through peaceful negotiations, according to a Danish scholar.
Sweden and Finland will today hand in their respective applications to NATO to join the organization, Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson said on Tuesday. In Sweden and Finland, we also agreed to go hand in hand through this entire process, and we will tomorrow together file the application, she told a joint news conference with Finnish President Sauli Niinisto in the Swedish capital. With Finland and Sweden speeding up their bids to join the 30-member military alliance, Jan Oberg, who is the founder of the Transnational Foundation for Peace and Future Research in Denmark, told reporters that many of the current problems have been created by NATO's military moves. Look at what NATO has been doing in the past 30 years. They have created the problems we have now. The solution to the Ukraine crisis is not militarizing more, because one of the reasons that we have the problems we have, and now we see how the NATO is arming Ukraine completely madly instead of working for peace and mediation and negotiations and some kind of new security structure for Europe, you pump in weapons, 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 he said. That's the only thing people in NATO know, and members of NATO and the United States know, is every problem must be solved by more weapons, Oberg added. Sweden on Monday took the formal decision to apply for NATO membership, following in the footsteps of its neighbor Finland, a decision which would see an end to the long-term neutral military stance of both countries. Russian President Vladimir Putin stressed that Russia has no problem with Finland and Sweden's NATO membership bid, but will react if NATO's move in the two countries is considered a threat. Finland and Sweden voiced optimism on Tuesday that common ground can be found with Turkey over its objections to them joining NATO amid a flurry of diplomatic activity aimed at smoothing their path into the 30-nation alliance. Turkey surprised many NATO allies on Monday by saying it would not support membership for Sweden and Finland after the two countries took the widely anticipated step of agreeing to apply to join the US-led alliance this week. Niinisto said he talked by the phone with Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan a month ago and that the message then had been supportive of Finnish and Swedish membership in NATO. But in the last week, he has said not favorable, Niinisto said. That means we have to continue our discussions. I am optimistic. Niinisto and Swedish Prime Minister Magdalena Andersson will travel to the United States to meet U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday to discuss the applications, the three administrations said separately on Tuesday. The U.S. is confident it can preserve NATO consensus to admit Sweden and Finland, the State Department commented.
Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador said on Tuesday, 17th of May, the U.S. economic embargo on Cuba was a genocidal policy, raising the stakes in a standoff with Washington over its treatment of the communist-ruled Caribbean island. López Obrador, a leftist who has repeatedly called for the United States to end the embargo, said earlier in May that he would not attend the U.S.-hosted summit of the Americas next month unless all countries in the region were invited. Speaking at a regular government news conference, López Obrador said the United States looked bad in how it was treating Cuba and urged Washington to end the embargo. Still, he welcomed moves announced by the U.S. government on Monday that will ease some Trump-era restrictions on the island and increase the processing of U.S. visas for Cubans. López Obrador on Wednesday is due to meet with a US delegation for the Summit of the Americas, in which he plans to explain why Mexico wants all countries in the region to attend. Cuban optimistic after US eases restrictions, it will make life better. Cubans in Havana on Tuesday, 17th of May, celebrated the Biden administration decision to ease Trump-era restrictions on remittances and travel to the island, a crack in the door that comes as its communist-run government wrestles with the economic crisis and a mass exodus of its citizens to the United States. Cuban citizen Rafael Vadechia said the decision will make life better for his countrymen at home and abroad, hoping for better relationships between both countries. The measures announced on Monday mark the most significant changes in US policy to Cuba since President Joe Biden took office in January 2021, but stopped well short of the historic rapprochement under former President Barack Obama. Among Cubans on the island desperate to reunite with loved ones in the United States, the announcement that the US would restart a visa program aimed at bringing together families was hailed as a blessing. But it made clear that the United States would not remove entities from the Cuba restricted list, a State Department list of the Cuban government and military-aligned companies with whom US firms and citizens are barred from doing business.
Bien, nos vemos.
At least 7 buses carrying surrendered Ukrainian fighters left the Azovstal steelworks escorted by pro-Russian armed forces on Tuesday, 17th of May, a Reuters witness said.
Concerns grew on Wednesday for the welfare of more than 250 Ukrainian fighters who surrendered to Russian forces as the Azovstal steelworks in Mariupol after weeks of desperate resistance. The surrender brought an end to the most devastating siege of Russia's war in Ukraine and followed President Vladimir Putin to claim a rare victory in his flattering campaign, which many military analysts said has stalled. Buses left steelworks on Monday in a convoy escorted by Russian armoured vehicles. 5 arrived at the Russian-held town of Novoskavak, where Moscow said wounded fighters will be treated. 7 buses carrying Ukrainian fighters from the Azovstal garrison arrived at the newly reopened prison in Russian-controlled town of Alevivka, near Donetsk, a Reuters witness said. Russians said that at least 256 Ukrainian fighters had laid down their arms and surrendered, including 51 severely wounded. Ukraine said 264 soldiers, including 53 wounded, had left. The TASS news agency said that the Russian investigation committee planned to question the soldiers, many of them members of the Azov battalion, as part of an investigation into what Moscow calls Ukrainian regime crimes. Russian Defense Minister video showed fighters leaving the plant, some carried on stretchers, others with hands up to be searched by Russian troops. There were some women aboard and at least one of the buses on Avlika, Reuters video showed. While both sides spoke in a deal under which Ukrainian troops would be abandoning the steelworks, many details were not yet public, including in how many fighters will still remain inside and whether any form of prisoner swap had been arranged. The Kremlin said Putin had personally guaranteed that the prisoners will be treated according to international standards, and the Ukrainian officials said that they could be exchanged for Russian captives. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchenchuk said Kyiv aimed to arrange a prisoner swap for the wounded once their coalition stabilized.
Let's have a look at today's finance. The CSX index is currently at 505.19 points, up 0.62 points or 0.12%. The daily exchange rate is 4,061 real to the US dollars. Now a look at what else is happening in finance around the world.
Asian stock markets egged out for the 4th straight session on gains on Wednesday. MSCI's broadcast index of Asian Pacific shares outside Japan rose 0.5% and is the longest winning streak since February. Japan's Nikkei rose 0.6% and the miners-led Australian shares about 0.9% higher. Gains followed in surge on Wall Street and the slump in the dollar as investors pushed worries about inflation and recession to back of their minds. But analysts doubt it could last in both. The greenback in the futures steady in Asia. SP 500 futures 0.2%, Nasdaq 100 futures fell 0.4%, while the FTSE futures were flat and European futures rose 0.2%. The dollar held as firm and overnight kicking, helped by the Australian wage growth missing forecast, which pulled down the Aussie dollar briefly below 70 cents. The greenback steadied on the euro as 1.0534 and paused for strong bounce sterling at 1.2480. That followed solid labour data on Tuesday. Wall Street finished sharply high on Tuesday, lifted by Apple, Telsa and other mega grab growth stocks after strong retail sales in April eased worries about slowing economic growth. 10 of the 11 major SP sectors index advanced with financials, materials, consumer directories and technology all gaining more than 2%. Reality punished shares of Microsoft Corp, Apple Inc., Telstra and Amazon gained between 2 to 5.1%, driving the SP 500 and ASAC higher. The SP 500 Banks Index jumped 3.8%, with the Citigroup climbed almost 8% after Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway disclosed a nearly $3 billion investment in the US leader. Another set of economic data showed industrial production acceleration 1.1% last month, higher than estimates at 0.5% and faster than 0.9% advanced in March. Japanese conglomerate Sony Group said it was well positioned to play a leading role in the metaverse or immersed virtual worlds, which commentates spectacular with massively disrupt industries and establish new powerhouses. The metaverse is a vague term encapsulating the idea of consumers will spend more time in online simulated environments, while the concept is evolving to become a buzzword with briefings and driver industry deal-making. The metaverse is at the same time a social space and live network space where games, music, movies, anime interact. Chief Executive Karisha Harshadi said a strategy briefing on Wednesday, pointing to the use of free-play battle royale title Fortnite from the Epic Games and online social space. Sony game music and movie units contributed 2/3 of the operating income in the year ended March, underscoring the group transformation from consumer electronics maker into the metaverse-ready entertainment juggernaut under Yushadi and processor Kuza Harari. The firm is gaming gatekeeper with its PlayStation 5 console. However, observers point out the risk presented by the growth of cross-platform, cloud-based titles and their potential to reduce the influence of proprietary platforms. Sony has been adjusting its approach, enabling cross in the front line in 2018. This week, Epic said that V-Games, V-Bucks currency purchased on PlayStation would be unusable on other platforms. PlayStation has played a huge role in social gaming revolution that's nurturing the growth of metaverse and the new entertainment medium. Epic CEO Tim Sweeney said on Twitter, Sony has also taken steps to expand beyond the focus in single-player titles such as Spider-Man Miles Morales, with the deal announced in January to Bungie, the developer online multiplayer shooter Destiny. We believe it will be a catalyst to enhance our live service games capabilities. Represents a major step forward in becoming multi-platform, Yoshidi said. Sony created a new lifestyle in 1979 with the launch of the Walkman, Yoshidi said. We are aiming to turn the mobility space into new entertainment space. We believe mobility will be the next meta-guard, he said. This is the latest news and finance. Tune in on Friday for more.
Now let's have a look at the weather and what you can expect for tomorrow. And finally, graffiti artists from all over Brazil spray painted on Tuesday, May 17th, 11 freedom-themed illustrations at the Three Powers Plaza in Brasilia to celebrate the South American nation's 200th anniversary of independence. The effort is part of the Supreme Court program to combat misinformation, fake news, and hate speech. Each illustration corresponds to the content of the article by the Supreme Court ministers on civil liberties as part of the Liberties Project booklet aimed to inspire young communities. The artists were selected by the founder of the Carioca Graffiti School and the Graffiti Museum in Rio de Janeiro, Rafael Araujo dos Santos Barbosa. Amazonian-born graffiti artist Shamir Ferreira said that her artwork generally focuses on economic freedom, and that is why she chose to paint an indigenous woman who is knitting clothes to generate income for the indigenous people. The Liberties Project book will be released on August according to the Supreme Court, and it will feature all the graffiti illustrations with summaries of the minister's articles. Thank you for watching the Daily Roundup here on EAC News Channel. For more breaking news and updates, check our website eacnews.asia or search EAC News on Smart TV, Telegram, or at your favorite app store. More from the EAC News team tomorrow night at 8 p.m. See you then.